Abdallah, this is absolute gold. No one's talking like this on any podcast.
Welcome back to the new Nomos podcast. I have been wanting to do an episode on lucid dreaming for ages, and so this episode is a dream come true. It's with Dave Green, who is a London-based artist who creates simple line drawings in his lucid dreams, which he recreates upon waking up. His art has been featured in BBC Science Focus. He's lectured about his work at the Tate Modern and is the subject of a documentary by the World Science Festival called The Dreaming Pen. Now, as I mentioned, I've been wanting to do an episode on lucid dreaming for a while. I'd reached out to various people online, and then one day I'm at the dentist waiting for my son's appointment, and there was a magazine on the table which I opened up onto a page on lucid dreaming, and in the middle of a double spread page was a photo of Dave Green. I did a little bit of research, went on Instagram, went to his website and sent him an email, and here we are. But this episode is about more than just dreaming. It's about our perception of reality, and you'll understand why I say that as you listen through the whole episode. I've also come to the arrangement with Dave that if you want your own dream portrait, you can reach out to him. I've put all his contact details in the episode description, and if you mention that you found him through the New Nomos podcast, you'll get a 10% discount. You're welcome. And so with that said, just a reminder, if you haven't already, sign up for my newsletter through my website, links in the description, and of course, subscribe to my YouTube, follow on my socials, etc., etc. You know what to do. So, without further ado, I present to you Season 2, Episode 2, Lucid Living, The Art of Dreaming.
For me, lucid dreaming comes fairly naturally, and I think for lots of people who experience it that way, it sort of starts in childhood. It seems like people have a similar story to mine where I basically learned how to do it as a young child as a way to deal with nightmares. Maybe 6 or 7 years old, I would have nightmares. And then at some point, I can't remember how, but I realized I could sort of wake myself up from these bad dreams. So I used to hold my breath and then count to 10, and then I'll be 9, 10, and then I'd sort of eject myself out of the dream. And from there, rather than waking myself up, I thought, well, if I know this is a dream, why bother waking myself up? Why don't I just, if it's a dream, it's not that scary anymore. So I would sort of stay in the dream, and then I realized I could kind of manipulate things and change things and then have my own little adventures. So that was when I was a child, and that just became a sort of normal part of my dream life, just ticking away in the background. And I didn't know there was a name for it or anything. And then years later, as a teenager, I heard the term lucid dreaming, I think on a TV documentary. And I was like, hey, that's that thing that I experience. And from there, I got a book about it, Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming, which I recommend for anyone who wants to try this. Stephen LaBerge is, he's the guy who sort of brought it into the scientific mainstream in the, I think it's sort of 70s, 80s. And so I got that book and sort of built on my natural ability and sort of learnt all the techniques and sort of took a deeper dive into it and with more sort of purpose. And I was studying art at the time at college, and it just seemed obvious to combine this love of lucid dreaming with art. But although a lot of, obviously you got like the surrealists who are very inspired by dreams, but what they did was, in general, they would depict their dreams. But when I tried to do that, it was always really disappointing because there was such a huge gap between what I experienced in these amazing lucid dreams and then what I would try to draw when I woke up. It was always just really disappointing. So what I did, rather than depicting my dreams, I would do a drawing directly in the dream. So I'd get a dream pen and a dream piece of paper, do a drawing in the world of the dream, and then wake up and make a copy. So I like to say they're not drawings of dreams, they're drawings from dreams.
I mean, I think just to clarify, what exactly is a lucid dream?
a lucid dream is just a dream where you're aware of the fact that you're dreaming. Okay, so lots of people have experienced a taste of that when they'll be having a nightmare, and then it will get very, very scary, and they'll go, oh my, hang on, this is just a dream, and then usually they wake up.
Right.
So if you can accept that that's possible, all lucid dreaming is that same sort of experience, but you don't wake up. And if you know you're dreaming within a dream, you have the knowledge that the whole environment you're experiencing is a product of your mind. And with that knowledge, you can then influence what happens in the dream. So that's not to say that nightmares are the only way into lucid dreaming, but I'm just using that example because I think lots of people are familiar with that experience. But there are ways you can train yourself to have these experiences more frequently. And a good way, I think lots of people, there's a way that I explain it, which I think lots of other people would not explain it in this way. But lots of people shy away from comparing lucid dreaming to imagination because, and I understand that, because in terms of how vivid and how real it feels, a lucid dream feels more like waking life in terms of how real it feels. But comparing it to imagination might be useful in that the dynamics of the experience are quite similar. In that if you use your imagination and you daydream about something, it's not like you're in control of everything that happens. It's sort of like a give and take between like your conscious and your unconscious, if that makes sense. Like if I get if I get the listeners at home to close their eyes and imagine a fun fair, for example, obviously this is different for everyone, but they'll close their eyes. We can try it live now. This is the first time I've done it with an actual person, so we'll see what happens.
I'm going to try.
You're imagining a fun fair, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of vivid scene, and just watch that image. And now, if you open your eyes again and tell me what you were seeing.
The carousel with the horses going up and down.
Yeah. Was there anything else? Or?
There were other things.
Describe the scene, like everything you saw. Try to describe it to me.
Grass.
Yeah.
Carousel on the grass, and then things happening around, but I wasn't focused on that. So there were things happening around, but I was just looking at this carousel and the horses going up and down.
Was there any people on it? Or?
No.
Okay.
There was nobody on the carousel, but there were people around.
Yeah, okay. That's kind of what I mean. This is so the idea is that I told you to just imagine a fun fair, and it's like your experience of that. It's not like you decided that there would be grass or you decided there'd be people there. Do you understand what I mean?
Right,
Those
right.
are just kind of there.
Yeah.
So the reason I got you to do that was in a lucid dream. It's like you could decide to go to a certain place, like a fun fair or wherever, but you're not in control of what it's going to look like, right? Do you understand what I mean? So,
right.
Or you could decide to meet a specific person, but they're going to surprise you with what they say and do. So it's not like you can control everything. Some people describe lucid dreams as an experience you can control, which doesn't make sense because you can't even control your daytime imagination or your day. You know, it's got a life of its own. So it's a give and take between what you decide to do, your intentions, and then surprising things which happen in response to that.
So then how much control do you actually have? Or not even, maybe control's the wrong word, but how much influence do you have on your dreams in your dreaming state? And like Dave's dreams and like your personal control or your personal influence.
It varies a lot. I mean, one way you can think of it is having a lucid dream. There's like a spectrum of lucidity. So you can have lucid dreams where you're kind of aware of the fact it's a dream, but you're not quite lucid enough to even influence stuff and control stuff. So that still counts as a lucid dream, just the awareness. Or you could have one where you're really, really changing things in a big way. I mean, you can make stuff appear, you can meet specific people, but it's not like it always works. You know, you can try and do something and it might not necessarily work. I might tell myself, oh, I want to dream of this specific person. And a good way to make that happen is just tell yourself they'll be behind you when you turn around, and you turn around and there they are, because it's easier to make things happen in a way that's believable to your mind, if that makes sense.
Right.
So it's easier for me if I wanted to dream of a specific person to tell myself that they'll be behind me when I turn around. It's easier to do that than to sort of go like abracadabra and like make a person appear, which kind of might be possible, but you'd be making it much harder for yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
When you tell yourself, if you wanted to go to a specific place, if you wanted to visit your childhood home, you could, try and make it appear in front of you just by willpower. But it's not a very easy way to do it. It'd be much easier to go to a doorway, find a doorway and tell yourself it will be behind that door, So it kind of has its own kind of logic to it. Yeah, it is quite hard to describe if you haven't had the experience, the sort of level of control. But I mean, one way, yeah, I guess it is kind of, you could say it's like being embodied in your imagination. So it's sort of like similar dynamics to imagination, but it feels very, very real. I mean, one way to describe how real it feels as real as a dream. And if you don't think dreams feel real, well, when you're not having lucid dreams, everybody every night is convinced that they are literally in those worlds. I mean, that's how convincing dreams are. If you take a step back, if you're trying to describe lucid dreaming and dreaming to someone from another planet, I think regular dreams are almost stranger than lucid dreams in a way. Like the fact you could dream that you were, on on a desert island somewhere, and you're a secret agent, blah 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 blah, and then as that's happening, you take that all to be absolutely real, and then you wake up and you're like, oh, hang on, that's almost stranger than having a similar experience where you're more aware of what's going on. Do you know what I mean? If you take a step back, dreaming.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember hearing, I think it was on that same documentary actually on Netflix, that they did like a research study on dreams, and they found that the emotions you feel while you're dreaming, you're actually feeling them. So it's like that part of the brain that processes emotion is on. So whatever, like if you feel sad, if you feel happy, if you feel scared, it's like you're actually experiencing those emotions in the dream state. It's just your body, the motion of your body is not on because that part of the brain is switched off. I think that's fascinating. So when you wake up, when you have, like, going back to the idea of nightmares, when you have a nightmare, you are experiencing that fear or that horror in front of you. So your brain is experiencing that. So when you wake up, your heart rate is beating faster because your body can't distinguish between what's real and what's dream.
Yeah, you're totally right. And that's why a lot of the time if you have a bad nightmare, the next day you'll be in a foul mood because in some way you did experience something really nasty, right?
Yeah, my favorite one is being blamed for my wife's nightmares.
Yeah.
So she has some nightmare with, I'm cheating on her or something, and like, I'm like, yeah, I'm very sorry for.
Because as we said, that's something she did experience, even if it doesn't relate to waking life.
Yeah, exactly. It's fascinating, man. It's absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. I mean, generally, the community of people who do lucid dreaming, they like to speak about waking life versus dream life rather than real life versus dream life, because dreams are, in a sense, real in the way that you're saying. They're real experiences. They're just private. They're just private experiences.
Well. There's a community of people there's like lucid dreamers. There's a community of lucid dreaming.
And people who, I'm mainly talking about online. People
right?
Who do, yeah.
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay, are there ways you can learn how to lucid dream?
Yeah, so it's a bit like musical ability. Like people have so there's differing levels of natural ability, but anyone can learn to do it with a bit of practice. So so the first step would be to keep a dream diary, because the first step to learning to lucid dream is remembering your dreams. And the best way to remember your dreams is to start writing them down.
Mm.
So that the very act of paying attention to your dreams is the first step.
Mm.
You'll find the more you pay attention to them, the more they'll respond. So the more dreams you record, the easier it will be to remember them, and it sort of exponential in that way.
Mm.
So that's the first step. And then there's two different varieties of lucid dream. There's a dream initiated lucid dream and the wake initiated lucid dream. I mainly do the wake one, but it's a bit of a strange beast, that one. So if you're starting out, the dream initiated lucid dream is the easiest one. And that's essentially training yourself to realize you're dreaming whilst the dream is unfolding. And the way you would do that is you take your dream diary. When you've got a couple of weeks or maybe a month's worth of dreams, you'll start noticing recurring themes coming up over and over again. It's different for everyone. But most people's dream life is there'll be similar things that come up over and over again. So you might always dream of fire engines, for example.
Right.
And you notice that and you're like, okay, so that's one of my personal dream symbols, is a fire engine, right? So then you tell yourself, next time I have a dream about a fire engine, or next time you even see a fire engine in waking life or in your dream, you're going to do something called a reality check. And that's where you ask yourself whether or not you're dreaming.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you're walking down the street, you see a fire engine, and then you just take a couple of minutes and it sounds utterly ridiculous, and in a way it is, but you've got to ask yourself and you've really got to believe it, otherwise it's not going to work. You've got to really ask yourself, is this a dream? You look around you, you might touch some stuff like that. Even the old idea of like pinching yourself, like
Right.
Look around, see if things are solid, and just ask yourself if you're dreaming. And if you do that regularly enough, when you see your personal dream symbols or just at regular intervals throughout the day, eventually you'll ask yourself that question, and the answer will be yes, you will be dreaming.
So like you will find yourself in a dream and that symbol reemerges, and at that point in the dream when you're asking yourself, you're realizing that, wait, this isn't waking life.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Right. Okay.
So you can do it when you see the dream signs, or you can just do those reality checks at regular intervals throughout your day. You can just set an alarm on your phone or whatever. Every hour might be a bit excessive, but at lunchtime, breakfast, dinner, whatever.
Right.
Don't give yourself indigestion, but take a little break. And I should elaborate on the reality checks a little bit more. The way they work is, although dreams can feel very, very real, they do operate in a very different way from waking life. And one of the main ways that dreams are different from waking life is everything's constantly changing in a dream. Nothing's really stable for more than a couple of seconds before it morphs into something else. And the people that study dreams call that hyper-associativity, which just means it's this very creative state where things are flowing into each other, right? So these reality checks take advantage of that quality of dreams, because one of the places where that constant change is really evident is in text, in writing. So if you're in a dream and you try and read something, it doesn't really work. The text is like moving around the page, and the letters are all dancing around, and so it looks very different in a dream. So that being the case, a reality check that lots of lucid dreamers like to do is they like to have a digital watch, or you can just use your phone. And at these regular intervals throughout your waking life, you ask yourself if you're dreaming. It's a bit like mindfulness practice. You just try and be mindful of your surroundings. Ask yourself, is this a dream? You look at your digital watch or your phone, and you'll look at the time. I'll do it with my phone now. So you look at the time. It's 10:48, right?
Right.
Then I'll look away. Then I'll look back. 10:48. I'll look away. 10:48. So I'm pretty sure I'm awake right now, and this isn't a dream. Because if you did that in a dream, you'd 10:48, then you'd look away and look back, and all the numbers would be jumbled, or it'd say something else, or
Right.
and you're like, this is a dream, right? So that's how it works. That's
At
probably
which
the best.
point you're now aware that you are in the dream.
Yeah.
Okay.
And at which point, so now we can sort of move on to the challenges. So then you're aware that you're in a dream. And at that point, many people beginning to do lucid dreaming will go, I'm in a dream. And they'll get so excited that that rush of emotion will wake them up.
Okay.
So that's the next step, is your emotions are very heightened in lucid dreams, and any extreme emotion, whether it be positive or negative, will wake you up. Again, going back to nightmares, when you get really, really scared, you always wake up, right?
Mm.
If you get so excited that you're in a lucid dream, you're going to wake up. I guess you just need to be aware of that fact and try and sort of temper that emotion. Even when you've been doing it a while and you're not excited, you do find yourself waking up sometimes, and there's various techniques you can do to keep yourself in the world of the dream. And a very simple one is, right, if you think about it, you've got your body laying in bed, right, your waking life body, then you've got your dream body, which is the body you experience yourself as in the dream. Mm-hmm. So if you feel yourself waking up, what you need to do is you need to engage the senses of your dream body. So what I might do is I might just start rubbing my hands together like that, because then that's keeping you in the world of the dream, right? Or just feel the walls. Do you understand what I mean? You want to be engaging your senses. Or spin around is a good one, because that's a really, that way your dream body, there's a lot going on when you spin around. So there's various ways that
it's absolutely fascinating
to stay in the dream. And I was reading a book recently. It wasn't about lucid dreaming. I can't remember the name of it, but there's a chapter on lucid dreaming, and he went to Stephen LaBerge's retreat out he does these, I'm not sure if he still does them, but in Hawaii, where he teaches people to lucid dream. And this guy was like a journalist, and he didn't know anything about it. And he said, he made quite an interesting observation where he was like, he thought it was like this vague sort of experience that people have. But then he was surprised when he heard lucid dreamers talking to each other, like, oh, hey, there's almost, not that there's rules, but there's definitely like the shared nature of the experience. There's lots of overlapping. So all the things I'm saying there, these are lucid dreamers chat to each other and they figure out this stuff, like the spinning around, the rubbing the hands, the watch thing, they're all like known techniques within the world of lucid dreaming.
So there's a whole grouping of people out there who, let's say, specialize in having adventures in the dream world.
Yeah, and there's books that are in about it, and workshops and stuff like that. Yeah.
So I'm just curious now, like, my understanding of the dream reality is it's you're tapping into what I would call the unseen or the unconscious, the subconscious realm, right? Now, that is also where all of our traumas and kind of narratives, etc., reside. So we kind of go through our waking life with, issues from our childhoods, issues from our parents, inherited patterns from our ancestors, etc., right? Now, I'm curious whether you have explored any of that in the dream world, like asking questions or meeting ancestors or meeting people or going back to childhood traumas, etc. Have you done any of that?
I see what you mean. I've done a little bit of that, but for me, well, not too much, to be honest. For me, the main sort of areas that I do are the artworks, and then I do, in terms of using it for self-development, I don't know if that's quite the word you were getting at there, but I quite like meditating in dreams, which is like,
wow.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. So that's like, this isn't quite what you were saying, but I haven't really explored that so much.
No, but that's in a way
therapeutic stuff. But meditating, yes. So that would be more sort of a Buddhist approach,
right? But so now you can whoa, okay, this is cool. So then you can induce a meditating state within the dream world.
Yeah, I mean, you literally, it's quite funny actually, because although I've been meditating for years, I'm very inflexible. So I sit down on a chair to meditate in waking life. But even when I'm in a dream, I still pull up a chair to meditate. But
Okay.
yeah, I literally will be in a lucid dream and I will, yeah, sit down on a chair and do a meditation exactly as I would in waking life. And that is really, really interesting doing that. I recommend anyone try that because for me, in terms of sort of beneficial knock-on effects to my sort of well-being, I would say doing those experiences have been pretty valuable.
Would you mind talking about your experiences doing that? Or is it kind of
Yeah,
personal?
so it's quite unusual. The thing you got to bear in mind about lucid dreaming is expectation plays a really, really key role. So I can tell you what I've experienced,
Right.
but it's quite a fun. It's like a hall of mirrors because then if you try this, if anyone tries this, what they experience will be influenced by what I've said. But that doesn't really matter.
Okay, right.
You understand what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
So so what's happened with me is I'll sit down and meditate, and I find that I mean it's a bit hard to explain, but the without going into too much detail, the environment of the dream will kind of break down in various ways. Sometimes it will kind of sucks in on itself, and the environment of the dream kind of disappears. And sometimes my sense of my body will sort of disappear as well. And then I'll find that I sort of wake up, but then it's what you call a false awakening, where I wake up into another dream, which is something that happens quite regularly anyway. But when I meditate, it seems to always happen. And I'm still kind of learning, but I'll from there I'll think, oh no, this is just another dream, and then I'll try and meditate again and just try and sort of reach that sort of contentless dream. And yeah, just it comes with a very peaceful. It's just like normal meditation, really, but rather than um, rather than trying to cultivate a detached relationship to your thoughts, you're trying to cultivate a detached relationship to the dream, if that makes sense, because the dream is your thoughts. So
Well,
it's like normal meditation, but times 100 or times 1,000.
right. Well, that's what, because I'm thinking now, like when I meditate in a waking state, there's when you kind of really feel that you've done it well, or you've kind of experienced the most of it, is like you almost go into a dream state
Okay,
where
okay.
where you're awake, but you're kind of in between being fully conscious or just being completely, like in
Yeah.
a state of bliss, or just a state of kind of, well, I suppose bliss would be the right word, joy,
Mm.
bliss, kind of just
Yeah,
ease.
yeah.
Now, I had never even thought it. I'd never even kind of contemplated that. I mean, already like just talking to you is amazing because it's like boom, 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 all of these different ideas. But to just for me, the thought of meditating in the dream state must be like so surreal.
It's interesting. And now I'm thinking about it. It does play into the more directly therapeutic stuff that you were saying, because what I've experienced a few times doing this meditation is and again, this is something that can happen in waking life meditation when you do quite long sits, is like, yeah, like shadow, what you might call shadow material comes up, like really dark stuff.
Mm.
Uh, but that's usually a sign that you're getting somewhere, if you can kind of push through that stuff. So yeah, I realized that recently, like just the other night I was doing one and I kind of fell into I was kind of sucked backwards and I sort of fell into a dark pit, and then a spike went through my head. So that wasn't very nice.
Right.
It's almost like the dream's trying to test you, because you're trying to you're trying to retain a sort of detached relationship to this stuff, and it's like going, you think you can do that? All right, here's a spike. Here's a spike through your head. But then you're happening, and it's happening, and you're trying to sort of remind yourself this is a dream. This is a dream, so it's quite extreme.
But you see, like now that you've had these experiences in the dream world, how does that affect your experiences in the waking world?
Yeah, well, specifically the meditation stuff, or
No, I'm just curious because I'm like also it's like, how do you know that the waking world is real and the dreaming world is unreal?
let me just check my phone. You yeah, I mean, the idea of these practices is to well, I mean, that's a big question there, but there's a few ways you can answer it. I mean, one way I would say is the idea of these practices is to cultivate an understanding of knowing the difference between the two, right? That's how you have lucid dreams, because you've because most of
Right.
the time when you're waking, people are stuck in their own heads thinking about their to-do list or where they go to do, what they go to be, blah blah blah. So you're not really aware of your state really. And doing these practices does teach you to be aware of your surroundings and what you're doing. But so that's one way of saying it. So you're learning the difference between dreaming and waking life, and paying attention to that. But obviously, if you wanted to go the more Buddhist, if you wanted to go really deep into it, the Buddhist approach would be, or various other sort of religious practices, and the way they've looked at lucid dreaming would be more like the whole point is to break down that boundary, and it would be like seeing the dream for what it is. Seeing the dream as an illusion would help you to see waking life as also a type of illusion. You see, and then all those ideas that we're not separate, we're all in the mind of God, or whatever, how they might phrase it. But
Yep. I'm just curious, is that how you experience it personally?
I wouldn't use those words necessarily, and I haven't really, I wouldn't say I've delved deeply enough into that to say really. But I find those ideas interesting. But yeah, but I would say definitely meditating in dreams. I've sort of dipped my toe into that a little bit, and I found that very interesting. Yeah.
Because I mean, for me personally, when I heard about that, about lucid dreaming through this lady again on this Netflix documentary, I can't remember what this is called. I have to. I'll put it in. I'll link it in the episode description. But the first thing that came to me is that's why I watched that while I was studying to become a life coach. So I'm currently professionally, like in my profession, a life coach.
Okay.
And as I was studying that, I came across this thing of lucid dreaming. And I just thought it's absolutely fascinating that one could then go, because what you find is if you're reflecting on things in your personal life, like, as I'm training to become a life coach, I had my coach over me that was taking me deeper and deeper and deeper into myself and my traumas and my issues and my things in order to free myself, because his whole his method is that you can only help somebody go as far as you've gone. So if you haven't dug deep enough in yourself, you can't actually guide the person to dig deeper into their self. And that's a strong part of his methodology. So while I was studying, he's taking me deeper and deeper and deeper, right? And what's happening is, because I am, asking these questions of myself and doing this inner work, you're just on a daily basis conscious of these different patterns in yourself, conscious of your different narratives in your head, etc., etc. Now, what will happen is every 3 or 4 or 5 days or whatever, you have a very clear dream, and boom, something else emerges. And so it was while I was experiencing that I watched this documentary, and I was like, oh wow, if I could lucid dream, then I could go and like find my grandfather or something and ask him about his experiences, or I could go and ask a question that I'm like, is this or that, or relive a memory from my childhood and kind of see it through a different perspective, so that I've now, as an adult, remember that experience as something horrifying. If I could replay that memory, Would I
Yeah.
see something different? Would I see something else? Would it be actually there was something good in it, and that kind of idea. And so
Yeah.
I went on this journey to try to lucid dream. And maybe I wasn't consistent enough. Maybe I didn't do it to its fullest, but I didn't have a full-on lucid dream. I had my dreams did get more vivid because I was keeping a dream journal and I was keeping a track of what I was dreaming of. And definitely doing that made my dreams clearer and easier to remember on waking. But there wasn't one point at which I was completely aware. But I got COVID and I remember lying on the sofa in a kind of like feverish state. So it wasn't it was I don't know if one would call it like semi-hallucinating or not, but I was very aware that I was kind of in between. And if I closed my eyes, and when I closed my eyes, I was a wolf running through a forest. When I opened my eyes, I was back on the sofa. And I closed my eyes and I'm like back into this world, this kind of magical forest. There's trees everywhere, and I'm just running and I'm going faster and faster and faster. And then suddenly I like see the edge of a cliff and I stop. And then I'm just looking down on this massive valley with like mountains and trees and everything. And, then I kind of like, all right, I'm back on the sofa. So it was kind of like a semi-lucid experience, but it wasn't a lucid dream. It was more kind of a lucid hallucination or something.
That's interesting. So you're saying it was a hallucination because you weren't asleep. You were more in a fever kind of.
Yeah, but it was great fun. It's like, and I was aware that I was this wolf, but not. I couldn't see my wolfness. I was just because looking forward.
Yeah,
but I was at the height of a wolf running through the forest, and like I think there was a moon actually at the end of it. And it was just this great experience. But I could choose which way I was going as well. It wasn't pushing me. I was kind of like being pulled along by it. And that was awesome. But then after that, I think I went on to the next curiosity. And I never, but now that I think about it, talking to you, one thing that I didn't do was that like waking check, like pinching myself or looking at a clock or something. I didn't do that. So maybe that would be the next step.
Yeah. I would say, I mean, this might help you, like you people listening to this. The thing I would say is, and you've learned this yourself, just keeping a dream diary in itself, that's a reward in itself, doing that. That's a rewarding practice. And also doing the reality checks is, at the very least, that's taking a moment, multiple moments throughout your day to just be mindful of your surroundings. So put it this way, if you just enter into this, say, I'm going to keep track of my dreams, I'm just going to take some time to do these reality checks. Even if you don't have a lucid dream, that is those practices can be rewarding in themselves. And you probably will have one, but if you approach it, don't put pressure on yourself, is what I'm saying. Just get in touch with your dreams, do those reality checks, and see what happens. It will be interesting anyway, even if nothing does.
Before we continue on this podcast, I want to introduce you to Harmonise, my 21-day classical music challenge.
Abdallah, I just want to tell you how much I really loved your 21-day classical music challenge. When I got the email about it, I was very excited. But once I heard it, I was really impressed with your curation of the music, because for those of you that haven't done the challenge, when you start the challenge, the pieces are short. And then each time the music gets a little bit longer and a little bit longer. And what I realized was, through the course of these pieces, you weren't just connecting me to the music, you were connecting me and extending my presence. And that's priceless. And that is such a beautiful thing. I encourage everybody to do it as soon as they can, especially if you don't listen to classical music, because if you don't, then it's time to start working on new ways to find peace. So I thank you.
Click the link below to find out more. So, do you fly?
So yeah, flying is like, like I was saying before, it's not like there's rules of the dream world, but there's certain experiences that come up again and again, and flying seems to come very, very naturally.
Yeah,
And,
it's
yeah,
interesting
everyone
that,
flies. Flying is like the number one.
right? Because I was just thinking that, I mean, I remember having a conversation with a friend of mine actually, and he was telling me that he'd had a lucid dream. And it was like, and as soon as he realized that he was lucid dreaming, he's like, okay, I'm going to fly.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it's the number one thing. And then obviously number two is, okay, I'm going to find the most beautiful woman.
Yeah, I was going to say that flying and that are probably the two.
Yeah. But so, because I remember I was talking to somebody while I was on this journey trying to lucid dream. And he kind of like looked at me and was just like, why would you want to do that? Like, you know, and I'm actually curious to ask you, if you were to recommend it as a practice to other people, why should they try to lucid dream or go on this journey?
Why should they? That's an interesting one. I mean, it's like, in terms of the stuff that I've got out of it, the meditation type experiences, I wake up with a very positive glow after those ones. Flying in a dream is just, I mean, it's just ecstatic. It just feels, they're up there with like my sort of some top experiences in my life, which sounds, that might seem like really sad, but not, yeah, I don't know if I would say the top experiences, but in terms of the sensation, it's just a very positive feeling. And with me personally, another sort of spin-off that it's had, the topic of lucid dreaming, once you start learning about dreams, man, it's not just dreams. It puts you into so many other avenues like philosophy, psychology. You just, to sort of figure out if you're trying to figure out what dreams are, good luck, because you end up like looking into so many different areas. So in that sense, it's sort of like a self-discovery, but also it leads you onto all these different parts of knowledge, you know.
Amazing. So,
but it's just self-evidently awesome. I don't know what your friend was talking about.
well, that's what, because, and then he sent me, there's this book called Reality Transurfing. Don't know if you've ever heard about it.
No.
And I remember he recommended me to read that book. It's a very long book. It's like 500-600 pages. I was reading it in London last year, and I think I got about halfway through it. And I agreed with a lot of the stuff in it. And then there's a part where he does start talking. He talks about lucid dreams, but he talks about it in a way that you should be careful in case you get completely sucked into the dream world.
Okay.
And that's where I kind of felt he went a little bit too, I don't even know how you'd explain it, but it's kind of like airy-fairy modern philosophical psychology philosophy thing. It's an interesting book, but you have to read it with your own discrimination. So you take what's good from it and you kind of leave aside what's not necessary. But it does make you, in reading it, it does make you question a lot of things of like, what is real? Like, how much can you actually manifest? So if you do change your psychology and the way you experience the world, how much does the world actually change? And you find that you are the one experiencing this reality, whether it's the waking reality or the dream reality, and you're the observing entity. So if you change what you see, then yes, your reality is going to change because you're the one experiencing it. So something horrible can happen in front of you, but if you experience that looking for the good in it, you'll find some good in it, you know, and something good may happen. And if you experience that looking at for the bad of it, which I think a lot of people do because it's just natural that because you're not looking for the good in something and you're kind of in a bad state, you experience this thing as bad. And then that just continues your experience of bad for that day. It's like they say you're waking up on the wrong side of the bed. You wake up on the wrong side of the bed and you're already grumpy from the moment you wake up. Now, the likelihood is you're going to have a grumpy day. And the person that you meet in the street who kind of greets you, you're going to be, oh, why are you greeting me? When you could have just greeted back, and then it would have been positive and uplifting, and then your day gets better and better. But you start your day off bad, and it continues bad. But it is very interesting then that if you do that in your waking life and then you do that in your dream reality, I don't know, because I haven't experienced it, but I'd love to. Now, on a slightly different topic, but related, obviously, what about the interpretation of dreams? Like interpreting dream events and experiences in waking life. Do you have any experience with that?
I'm surprisingly bad at that. In a way, I have quite an unusual sort of. But I mean, this is the thing about dreams. There are no rules. There's a million different takes on it. But yeah, as I said, my main focus is doing these drawings, and then when I'm not doing that, sort of doing these meditation practices. So I don't. Occasionally, stuff comes up in the drawings, and yeah, I have dreams where I'm like, that obviously relates to that. So yeah, it's not like I totally ignore that, but I don't like. That's not like a major focus of how I work with dreams, if that makes sense.
So what are these drawings that you're doing?
Yeah, I'm just thinking now, like part of the reason why I don't maybe analyze it for meaning too much is like, because I'm sharing these drawings online, and if I start delving into what these all mean, I might suddenly be like, hang on, I don't want people seeing this.
Yeah.
It's revealed, I'm very much like putting my unconscious out there, internet or whatever. But you wouldn't know by looking at them. The drawings are okay. So when I draw in a dream, so we spoke a little bit before about in a lucid dream, you can do something, you can meet a person, but you don't know what they're gonna do or say. They're gonna surprise you, So when I do a drawing in a dream, it's a bit like that. I'll get the pen and paper, and I might just draw a circle, but then another image will appear on the page. So I just draw like one or two lines, but then the drawing from there just comes to life, and all sorts of stuff appears on the page. And then I try and remember it. Then I wake up and create a copy of it. But the sort of stuff that appears, yeah, that might be what you call like archetypal imagery, like Jung's idea of archetypes, sort of these patterns that emerge in different cultures and throughout the world. I quite often have words come up. I was saying before how words are hard to read in a dream, but that doesn't mean they're impossible to read. I will see words on the page, and there'll be I forget the word for it now, but they're like, when people are like speaking in tongues, again, in various religious traditions, there'll be this, when you see them in like American churches, and they go, saying these words. And it's, I'm blanking on the technical term for it. But anyway, in lots of different altered states of consciousness, that's quite a common thing that comes up. Like you might call them nonsense words.
Right.
And so that quite obviously in a religious context, they'd see them as like some sort of divine language or something. I don't necessarily see it as that. I don't know what I see it as. That's the thing. I like to leave it open. That's why I like exploring this through art, because it's like I don't have to come up with I don't have to say what this is. It's more open, So what I'm trying to say is when I do these drawings, I'll get these strange nonsense words, and I have no idea what they mean. Like one of them was Plu Pendelenlen, for example, and that's like just on the page was written that Pew Pendelenlen.
Right.
Who knows what that means? And so it's totally bizarre, but that's why I love doing it, because it's just like what the hell is this stuff? And yeah, just strange words, numbers, and then just strange images, and like lots of faces made out of faces, that kind of stuff. And there's a crossover between, I don't know if you're aware of the term outsider art. There was a movement like it's like like modernism, like the modern artists were kind of inspired by it. It was basically art by, a lot of the time it was by mental patients and people with mental health problems, serious mental health problems like schizophrenia and stuff like that.
Okay.
Because obviously they see the world in a very different way. The art that they would create would be very, very unusual, and that inspired the surrealists because it's massively generalizing. It's stuff that's coming from the unconscious, and there's various different ways into that. Psychosis is one of them, obviously. But what I was going to say is, the stuff that comes up in these dream drawings is like similar to that kind of thing. So you might get faces made out of lots of little faces, that type of thing. And that's like a classic thing that comes up in what they used to call outsider art. Yeah, so it's strange. But I don't, sometimes a meaning jumps out at me, but I don't delve into the meaning too much. I like to prefer just to leave it open.
Right. It is what it is.
Yeah, because I think if I was doing it just for myself, I might be more, I might want to delve into the meaning a bit more, but I'm doing it for, I mean, there's no getting around it. This is quite a sort of indulgent thing to do. But if I was making these drawings and then also saying, well, this is what it was about this girlfriend that left me when I, it would be a bit too, just to do the drawing and it's sort of mysterious.
So you're also doing portraits for other people, right?
Yeah.
I saw a video of you doing that. What's that? How do you do that?
Well, someone said to me that it might be an interesting thing to do to meet someone in a dream, because you remember you can meet specific people in your dreams, and I could create portraits of those people. And then I started thinking, how would I do that? And like I said before, there's the dream world's always changing. So if you try to draw a portrait of someone in a dream the same way you would in waking life, it's not going to work, because in waking life you look at the person, look at the paper, look at the person, if you do that in a dream, because everything's changing, it will just be a mess. By the time you look at them and look back at your paper, it will just look different. So it's not going to work. So I do this thing where because remember, this is lucid dreaming, so you can do anything you want within reason.
Right.
So the technique that I use to do people's portraits, it's not like this is the way to do a portrait in someone's dream. It's more like this is the way that I chose to do it, because this sounds fun and makes sense to me. So the way I do it is I get a piece of paper and I hold it up to the person's face in the lucid dream, and I kind of will the paper to become transparent. And then I see the person's face through the transparent paper. And then I tell myself lots of drawings are going to appear on that paper. And then that's what happens. And again, they're portraits in a very loose sense, because they don't look like drawings of people. They are, in a very broad sense, if I was going to do a portrait of you in my lucid dream, I would meet you in my lucid dream, and there would be some sort of interaction between dream me, dream you, and a piece of paper on which artworks will appear, and then I'll wake up and recreate that drawing. So I think of the artworks in a way. The actual final drawing is just half of it, because the story which comes from the dream, I see that as part of the artwork as well. So really, they're drawings with stories attached. That's the way I see it.
Amazing. And how have people, like your previous clients, how have they, what's their kind of response been to these portraits or these stories?
Yeah, well, inevitably, quite a lot of the time, I'll speak to the person on Zoom before we do it, so I can, a lot of the time they're in other countries, so I need to. If someone just emails me and goes, "My name's Steve, can I get a portrait?" I can't just dream of Steve. I need to have something to go off. So I'll chat to them on Zoom. So I've met them, I have some contact with them, and that way I can have a dream, and it's more meaningful. Like I can actually meet that person, the dream version of that person. And then I'll do the drawing, and then sometimes we'll have like a follow-up Zoom, and and inevitably people will want to read into it, and they'll be like, "Oh, this is You know, I don't know how you knew this. And sometimes, what I'm trying to say is sometimes people treat me like a psychic, and I don't, and I understand why that happens, because it's a very, on the surface of it, I guess it's quite a similar dynamic, but that isn't what I'm not totally closed off from those ideas, but I'm not like, that isn't what I'm touting necessarily. So
Yeah.
in the early days, people would like say that, and I'd be like, no. But now I'm like, man, it's art. You know, you read into it what you want to read into it. I'm not going to like, you know, it's like I was saying before. It's I make the drawing, and then after that, it's you know, people can read into it what they want to. So
Yeah. No, it's just really interesting because I mentioned to my mother in the week that I was doing this recording, and I just told her that I'd watched this video, like just doing my preparation for this conversation. And I watched a video where it was online. I think you were explaining, it was on your website. It was talking about your portraits and what you do.
yeah.
I just mentioned it to her, and she was like, "Oh, I want to do that. I want to do that." She was like really excited about it.
Yeah, I'll do
And
it for your mum. Yeah.
yeah, no, for sure. I'll put you in contact with her. I also want one.
Okay, I'll do the whole family. I'll do a
Yeah,
family.
why not? And see what similarities come up, which is quite interesting because did you listen to that episode with Dr. Maria? You mentioned you'd
I only listened to the opening bit. I didn't hear the whole
okay. So because she's just very finely tuned in an audio capacity. So she's a musicologist. She's been playing the piano since she was like 4 or 5 or something. She's done some really amazing, groundbreaking work in the field of deafness and helping people. She works with children of various ages, but specifically with, I think it's under a year old, because at that point the brain hasn't completely how do I explain it? Like when a child is born, the brain is still fusing, it's still kind of forming its kind of neuro pathways, etc. So at birth, a child can hear all sounds, but as you get older, the brain only fuses the sounds that it's experienced. So like you get different languages, for example. So a child that in India, there's different ways of saying the letter T. So it's not just T, it's T, ta, ta, ta. And somebody who hasn't grown up like that can't differentiate between the two different T's. But a child born in India and heard that T his entire life can distinguish between the two. And like with various other languages and kind of subtle sounds, etc., that you grow up and then you can't actually differentiate between these two different sounds. So what she's done is with classical music is exposing to very young children to a wide range of different sounds and different scales and different instruments, etc., so that they have a broader sound experience and knowledge, I guess you could say. Where the hell was I going with this? Oh no, that's what it was. So what she is able to do because of her knowledge of sound and her very fine-tuned ears is when you speak to her, in the first 5-10 seconds, she can tell the scale that you speak in. So the musical scale, so you go from like A, B, C, C sharp, whatever it is. And she can just hear the scale at which you speak. So I speak in F sharp major, apparently. And what's very interesting is there is a study that was done in the 1800s by some German musicologist philosopher, and he mapped out the emotional landscape of each one of the scales. So a composer will write music in, let's say, I think D major, which is very uplifting and very happy, and you listen to a piece played in D major and you're like, you just feel good, right? and another composer who's doing a requiem mass or something more somber will use a different key, which kind of unlocks those feelings of sadness, etc., etc. Right now, what we've found so far is that the scale in which you speak correlates with the emotional landscape of that scale. Now, so far, I have no idea what this means, but again, it's triggered my curiosity that because I launched this 21-day classical music challenge where I had like people from all over the world listening to different pieces of music every day, starting at 5 minutes and kind of getting slightly longer and longer and longer until on day 21, it's like one of Beethoven's full symphonies. And what I got each person to do is send me a voice note of their reflections on that piece. And I was sending those voice notes to Maria and getting her to tell me what scale do they speak in. Then towards the end of the challenge, I was telling, if like I know that so and so speaks in C sharp major, and the emotional landscape of C sharp major is such, and I send that description to them, and I said, does this describe who you like? Do you resonate with that as a description of you? Every single person agreed, and that was fascinating. And then what was doubly fascinating is there was somebody in America. There was a lady in America who spoke, I can't remember the scale, but let's just say F major. And so there was a lady in America who spoke in F major. There was a guy in London that spoke in F major, and another guy in Nigeria who spoke in F major. And what they felt listening to one of the pieces was almost identical, right? So this is a piece of music that was written by Bach, so that's in the 1700s, played through YouTube today, where you have three people of different ages, different sexes, and different kind of cultural backgrounds, etc., etc. I mean, like America, London, and Nigeria, all having the same experience, all speaking in the same tone or the same kind of key. And I was like, that is absolutely fascinating. So there's something there in the frequency and the harmonies and the resonance of that piece of music that speaks to that type of person, whether they're black, white, pink, they speak this language or that language. It's just in the music it speaks. So there's the music is tapping into something that connects humans through their humanness. And what I am absolutely certain of, well, it's not even, you don't need to be absolute, is you don't even need to kind of scientifically prove it at all. But simply that the dream is something that connects every single human being in their humanness, because every single human dreams.
Yeah.
Whatever language you speak, whatever society you come from, whatever culture you come from, and all of the major religions, spiritual paths, etc., they all have some kind of connection to the dream reality. And whether it's like, and that's why I was kind of asking you about the interpretation of dreams, because they all have some kind of connection to the dream world and the interpretation of dreams, and dreams having meanings. And you look at all the mythological stories, and like the hero will have a dream and something will be inspired. Or what was the other one, the periodic table? I remember them telling me at school that the scientist that came up with the actual table, he saw it in a dream. So then where did it come from? It's like, and then you start tapping into the realm of divine inspiration, etc., so I mean, I just find it absolutely fascinating as a subject, because it's something that it's one of those overarching things that just connects people. We're connected. And what you're telling me through these kind of self-portraits is whether, because what I'm hearing is because you're tapping into that realm that connects all humans that are living, and maybe even that are dead. I don't know. But it's like there's some kind of thing, some arena that you're tapping into that when you meet somebody in that realm, it's having an effect on them. Now, they can then define you as a psychic or not, but that's not the point. The point is that you're kind of connecting to something, plugging into something that I think the ancients knew about. I mean, without getting too caught up in conspiracy theory or like religion, so to speak. But I think there's the ancients knew about this.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. But yeah, once you sort of start researching dreams and the way different cultures have seen them throughout time, etc., there really is no one way. I mean, if you're trying to figure out what dreams are or what they do or what, it's sort of, the more you look into it, the more you realize it's almost a nonsensical question. In the way that I was saying before about how your dream life is as real as real life is.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like, trying to find out the answer to what dreams are or what they mean is a bit like trying to find the answer to what this life means. And good luck if you've got the definitive answer to that. Yeah, what I'm saying. It's the same thing with dreams. It's not like there is an answer. There are various meanings to be found for dreams, and various different cultures have had totally different ideas of what it is. Yeah, whether it's like what you're saying, like it taps into like a transpersonal consciousness that transcends your personal sort of little private world, or it's something that just happens in your head, or it's connected to the afterlife, or there's a million different ways. That's why I like to explore it through art. I like to leave it open.
I like that. Have you read a book? I can't remember the author's name. I always forget his name. It's called The World Is As You Dream It.
No.
And it's written by the man that wrote Confessions of an Economic Hitman.
Oh, it sounds vaguely familiar. Yeah.
I can't remember his name. Oh, I'm actually going to Google it. John Perkins, right?
Okay.
So he, long before he wrote the Confessions of an Economic Hitman, which was his massive, big hit, bestseller, etc. He wrote this book, I think it was in 1996, called The World Is As You Dream It. And I guess at that point of his life, he was disillusioned by his career as this kind of economic hitman, etc., etc. And he had gone on a journey to South America I don't know, I can't remember why he went in the first place, but he went to South America and he was in the jungle of Peru, I think. And he met this shaman there. And I mean, there's also like a whole load of things on psychedelics and other kind of practices to tap into the ether, or whatever you want to call it. The shaman, basically, one of the things that he showed him, or he taught him, was that the future is a dream and the past is a dream, and there's only now. Now, as you can dream your future and turn it into a kind of you can have like your goals and aspirations and what you're kind of moving towards as a dream, so too you can change your past, because your past is also just a dream. If you're not in it anymore, it's just a memory, it's a dream, it's an idea in your head. So you can change your past by changing the dream of the past. I thought it was very interesting. I highly recommend reading that book, The World Is As You Dream It. And it kind of comes back also to that thing of mindfulness and being present in the moment, because you can change as much as you can manifest and change your future. I think what's also important is changing the way you see your past. And I was going to talk about, I'll talk about it with you on a personal note. Whether I put it out there to the world, I'll choose in the edit. But so again, coming back to that journey that I was on, becoming a life coach with my master coach, you could say. And one of these things that kept emerging was my relationship with my father. And what I realized as going through this journey, it wasn't my relationship with my father, it was my father's relationship with his father, which was very messy. And I never met my grandfather, so I never knew him. I didn't experience him or anything. And then I went on a journey to find, and I remember asking my father, I had a long phone call with him, and I was asking him about his father and asking him all these questions, and a few of them he didn't know, but it turned out that my grandfather was stationed in Malta during the Second World War, and he was working for the RAF, and so he was obviously seeing every day these planes going off and going off, and these kind of heroic fighter pilots not coming back. Now they were bombing North Africa, right? So basically like the Muslim lands of North Africa. So when my father became Muslim in the 70s or whatever it was, my grandfather disowned him. And for me, it was like suddenly in that moment, I was like, boom, it was all so clear, because these people that had been like these heroic men fighting for the RAF had been going off killing these like bad Muslim people, and then his own son goes and becomes Muslim. It was like his psychology couldn't comprehend it, because in order for him to accept that, he has to accept that, it was all his friends and heroes that died during the Second World War. There was this whole other thing, and I just thought it was absolutely fascinating. And then I told that to my father, and it was like something popped in him. It was like he was free of that pain.
Wow.
And in him being free of that pain, it was like I was free of it. And it was like, it was amazing. It was such a beautiful thing. And I mean, my father's like proper English, you don't talk about your emotions. All that stuff is kept hidden, stiff upper lip. And it was like somehow we tapped into this place that was just really beautiful. And it was partly from that book, change the way you see your past, and it changes your present moment. So I do highly recommend reading that book. I'll send you a link.
Yeah, please do.
By
Yeah,
WhatsApp.
That sounds really interesting.
I saw you posted on Instagram something about. I read the description, and it was something along the lines of doing research where AI is depicting the images that you're experiencing in the lucid dream. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, that particular one. Yeah, there's a few different strands to it. That particular one was basically I've like a lot of people, I've got excited by all the recent advances with AI. Excited / terrified. Depending on the day, it's excited. But so and naturally I'm thinking, right, how can I combine this with the world of dreaming and the world of creating art? And one of the ways, there's a few different ways I've been thinking about doing it. Let me talk about this first, actually. So a lot of people don't realize this, but like the idea of video recording a dream, like if you were having a dream, like me being able to watch it back on a video screen, that sounds like totally science fiction. But what people don't realize is they've already made inroads into doing that. Like a decade ago, they had a very, very rudimentary way of doing that. But now it's using AI, and because AI is getting much better, people are kind of looking at these things again, and they're getting closer to being able to do that. So it's probably a bit confusing for people, so I'll explain the way that that's possible. So we get you in a sleep lab, and if I wanted to record your dreams, we'd put you in a fMRI scanner so you're laying there, it's scanning your brain, and would show you hours and hours of video footage and different photographs, like a lot. Like this takes weeks to do.
Okay.
And I scan your brain while you're looking at an apple, while you're looking at a tree, while you're looking at a dog, while you're looking at a car, etc., etc. There's many different things.
Right.
So we know what your brain looks like when you're looking at all these different objects. Then you probably guess where this is going. Then go to sleep and have a dream in the scanner. And with that information, which is different for everyone, you have to do it personalized, this experiment to every different person. Then you can have a dream in the scanner, and I can wait, and you can wake up and I'll tell you, oh, you were having a dream about walking through a forest, and then a bird flew by, and then whatever. And it's like 80% accurate, I believe. I have to check those statistics, but
Wow. Okay.
so in that, it's a very roundabout way of doing it. And they will have a screen that has like an AI reconstructing what that dream would have looked like as well. So where I'm going with that is what I want to do, and I'm speaking to researchers about this. I want to go into a lucid dream and do a drawing with my dream pen and my dream piece of paper in the dream, and then have like a live video sort of playing what that looks like, like a live readout of the artwork. And if we train the AI on what my drawings look like, then that will add to the does that make sense?
That makes absolute sense. And I think what's interesting is that further confirms that you're actually drawing what you say you're experiencing in the dream reality.
Exactly. Yeah.
You're not just scribbling on a piece of paper and saying, oh yeah, this was a portrait.
That's part of the motivation. It's not the only one, but it's because I am aware that yes, almost everything I do relies on me saying, my honesty, basically saying what I'm doing. But yeah, so part of me is thirsting for this some sort of objective thing. But apart from that, it is just fascinating. And I think a lot of the reason, you've probably heard loads of stuff in the media about AI sort of threatening the role of the artist, et cetera, et cetera. And I totally understand that, don't get me wrong, but the flip side of that, in a way, this is like a really, really exciting time for art, in the way that the invention of the camera and photography was an exciting time, and that gave birth to abstraction and all this exciting stuff, because it pushed people into a new area. It's the same with AI, it's making people really think about what art is. And I think part of that is, an AI can come up with a complex painting, but if there was no, let me put it another way, if someone makes a painting, if a human artist makes a painting, we know looking at that painting, there was something it was like for that person to make that painting. Does that make sense?
Kind of.
There was an experience there when that person was making the painting.
Yeah.
It was an experience for them. Do you understand what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And though it might not literally be translated, it's that I think that matters, because I don't think the AIs will be. And if we get into this, it'll take ages. But all I'm saying is currently that an AI makes something and it may look good, but the AI didn't experience anything when it was making it. The lights were off,
Yeah.
I think that makes it sort of, again, like the stories attached to the things matter, not just the things. But anyway, this thing of sort of collaborating with the AI, I think that puts an exciting spin on it, because then it's a collaboration between the two, right? There's a human artist. It's sort of giving you an insight into something you wouldn't usually be able to see. So anyway, that's stuff I'm excited about.
Well, also, I mean, AI can't really produce anything without an input, right?
Yeah. So
there's got to be some kind of, you've got to type into it like green dragon in a magical forest, digital art, boom, and then it kind of creates its thing, right? But I mean, you've got to input something into the thing in the first place. I just feel, again, even with this thing of all of the, like you were saying, that the AI is extremely exciting, but it's also very terrifying. I'm like, again, that just kind of comes back to the thing that I was saying about the changing your past and changing your present, changing your past and changing your future, and like that having an effect on your present and how one experiences the world. If you experience AI positively, then there's positive in it. If you're going to see it as a nightmare, then it's going to be a nightmare, and you're going to see all the nightmares of it. At the end of the day, it's just technology. It has no power. It has no intrinsic power to it. it can be used for good, it can be used for bad. And I think that's the same with all technology. But at the end of the day, with anything artistic, it comes down to the question of the one experiencing the art. Now, and you have to have a soul, or you have to have something in you to experience the art for it to affect you. Now there's a friend of mine who's an amazing photographer, and there's this one photograph that he took that I absolutely hated. Like I hate it. And I remember telling him, it's like, I absolutely hate that piece. And he was so happy, because he was like, great, it affected you. And I was like, amazing. I remember it was about 6 or 7 years ago at a gallery, and it was like, it had an effect on me, and that he was happy that his kind of creation, this photo, whatever image he'd captured, it was these two kind of two gangsters from Cape Town, but like really like street gangsters. It was just like a very horrifying image. And I was just like, I don't like it. And he's like, good. It stirred something in you. It activated something in you. And I thought that was very interesting. And I think that is what art is like, it has to affect you. And so like with what you're doing, with whether people perceive it as some psychic ability or clairvoyance or whatever it is, at the end of the day, you're producing a piece of art that affects somebody. And I think that's absolutely amazing, man. And I want a dream portrait. How does somebody go about commissioning a dream portrait?
Well, yeah, usually, as I'd say, the first step would be to do a Zoom to sort of get to know the person. I mean, this podcast will serve as that. We don't need to do this again. But I mean, not that I wouldn't want to, but
right.
Yeah. So this is I've got I've got a feel for you now, so I could for sure conjure up a dream in which I meet you,
Fantastic.
and then from there I usually say. I say, give me about 2 weeks to have the dream. Usually it happens quicker than that. I like to give myself a couple of weeks. And then from there, I create the drawing. And then I'll write you a little thing about the dream and what happened in the dream. And then I'll send it to South Africa or wherever you happen to live. And that's essentially it.
How much do you charge?
So they're 200. Yeah, 200.
Oh, come on.
What, you say, why, you want to give me more?
No, I think you should be charging a lot more.
It's they will go up. I'm kind of collecting. It's always funny when people tell me, Dave, I want to pay more for this. That's how much.
I think. I mean, well, that's actually something I wanted to ask you. Do you know of anybody else in the world today doing what you're doing?
The portraits, definitely not.
Well, there you go. You are doing something. I mean, we know there's a community of lucid dreamers. We know that people that do it, etc., etc. But doing this kind of dream portrait, I mean, if you are the only person in the entire world doing it, that is extremely unique. Like, and you're charging 200 quid. Like,
yeah. Is this you slipping into life coach mode?
No, this is me slipping into digital media mode. I really feel that what you're doing is so unique and cool and really like connecting to that realm, the dream realm. I mean, that thing that you said to me now, this meditating in a dream state, that is like completely blown my mind, because all of the ideas that I'd thought that I could get from lucid dreaming, now that for me is like, oh, I want to meditate in a lucid dream.
If you're interested in that, what you need to look at is dream yoga. And dream yoga is what I mean, yeah, we discovered lucid dreaming in the 70s and 80s, but
right,
the various traditions have delved into it. But the Buddhists, doing it thousands of years ago and like really, really in depth. And in that tradition, they call it dream yoga.
Right.
And that's where, if you're interested in meditating in dreams, that's like, that's where you look at
way.
it. There's a few good books on that.
No, I'm really excited to see where this takes you, man. I really, really am. I think you've got such a cool thing, and I want an Abdallah Dutton portrait on my wall, and to everyone who comes through my house, it's like, yeah, that's my dream portrait or whatever.
Yeah,
And
man. It would be
just
an honor to do one for you.
pimp you from my house. Yeah, I'm excited to see where this takes you, but do put the price up.
It's tricky with art because it's how do you put a price on it? The price is always the plan is always to put it up. It's just when, you know.
The price of art is what somebody is willing to pay for it.
And
that is the price of art, and that's what makes art so valuable. And that's why people can charge insane amounts. I mean, the thing is, what I would suggest is doing a portrait for one of the most, because you don't actually need to meet somebody in person. So you could watch, I don't know, watch one of Joe Rogan's podcasts or whatever, meet Joe Rogan in your dream, enjoy his portrait, and reach out to him and say, look, I did this, you know, something along those lines.
Yeah.
And then you can do it for anybody. You can do it for people that have long gone, and you can sell your portrait. Like, this is the dream portrait of my meeting with, I don't know, whoever you want to meet.
Yeah,
you know,
I have done that actually. I did one of Philip K. Dick, if you know that guy, the sci-fi author.
No, I don't, unfortunately. No,
he's the guy who wrote. He wrote the book that Blade Runner was based on.
Oh, interesting.
And Minority Report, stuff like that.
Oh, cool. Yeah, and you can just, like, the boundaries are endless. You can just choose whoever you want throughout history and just go and meet them and see what they've got to say or see what they've got to show. And that would be so cool, man. Yo, I'd like to meet Mussolini.
Yeah, I can see what his portrait would look like. Yeah,
you know, or somebody along those lines. I don't know.
Yeah, you could do that. Great dictators through.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, the possibilities are limitless, because I mean, it's the dream world, and so then then you can sell a collection to somebody as a very specific, unique collection of. I mean, and then it's on commission. You can do on commission as well. So it's just like you can have your lower ticket offers and your higher ticket offers.
Yeah.
And then
the portraits they will go up at some point. What we didn't talk about was one of the other things I do is rather than doing people's portraits, another exciting thing I've been doing is I'll meet a person in my dream. These aren't necessarily specific people, but I'll just go up to whatever random dream character is there. That's what they call them, dream characters. And then instead of doing the drawing myself, I give them the pen and paper and I ask them to do a drawing.
Oh, so
I'm actually collaborating on that with there's a scientist who studies dreams called Antonio Zadra, and he's sort of, one of his areas of research is to what extent dream characters have their own internal worlds and their own volition, or whatever you want to call it. So that's an experiment with that. You give them pen and paper and ask them to do a drawing, and then so I've had quite interesting stuff come out of that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Just on that note, have you ever, like, done it with animals?
Not on purpose, but when I was doing that, the thing I was just talking about with dream characters, I was looking around for somebody and I couldn't find anyone, but I did see a dog.
Okay.
And I gave the dog a pen and paper and the dog did a drawing. It's
interesting.
A kind of weird factory kind of thing. But it's only that one occasion, and that was more like opportunistic because the dog was there. It wasn't planned to do it.
I'd also like a portrait of a wolf.
A portrait of a wolf, doing a portrait of,
but a dream portrait of, so like the wolf's there, and then see what the wolf face turns into.
I see what you mean. Yeah. Because of your experience with the wolf. Yeah.
Well, also I dream of wolves all the time, and like wolf is definitely a theme that, whether you're talking about my dreams or whatever, it's like there is definitely a recurring thing of wolves.
Interesting.
Like our family crest has also got 2 wolves on it, and my great ancestor was called Rolf or something. It's Viking, which means the famous wolf. So it's like
Wow.
there's definitely something in the genetic code where there's a recurrence of this kind of wolf theme or wolf animal.
Yeah.
So I am a big fan of wolves. I mean, it's so Inception, man. It's insane. What do you know anything about Inception as a film? Like the people that wrote Inception, were they having
I've watched it a few times. I don't know. I'm not sure of the backstory.
right? I mean, were they? So you don't know whether the writers were actually lucid dreaming or kind of tapping into this world at all.
What's the guy? Who's the director again?
I want to say Christopher Nolan, but I don't think it is. Let's have a look. Let's just do Inception.
I remember hearing that he was into lucid dreaming, which obviously makes sense. You probably
Oh, it is. Yeah, Christopher Nolan.
Christopher Nolan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's I don't know in great detail, but I believe he is into lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
But that's lots of lucid dreamers give that film a hard time, going, "Oh, it's so unrealistic, bloody blah blah." I quite like it. I mean, as we've discovered in this podcast, it's very hard to articulate and explain what lucid dreaming is like. I mean, hopefully, I've done an.
I just love that. I love that. The depiction of lucid dreaming is unrealistic. It's brilliant, brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I mean, there's a trade-off there, isn't it? I mean, if you made it really, really sort of what's the word, accurate depiction of what lucid dreaming is like,
Right.
probably wouldn't be a very entertaining movie, you know.
Yeah, exactly. No, exactly.
Yeah, I think it's a good film.
Oh, fascinating.